Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 362. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Monday, May the 27th, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. A Monday morning podcast? Well, it's Memorial Day. I've got the day off from the day job, so I figure why not? We'll do a Monday morning podcast. And the topic of today's podcast, will you ride the AI boom? Now, you can't turn around, listen to the radio, watch the news, open up a newspaper, those that exist, and not read about AI, artificial intelligence. It seems to be the biggest story out there. That's mainly because it is. It's here. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And no matter what you think, what you want to do, what you believe should or should not happen, it doesn't matter because it's the genie's out of the bottle, the cat's out of the bag. You put any scenario, any phrase you want to, but it's a done deal. That's the topic of today's podcast. Not so much what is AI, because I think everybody knows what it is, or at least most people know what it is, but it's not the boogeyman that you may think that it is. In fact, it's not unlike several other new waves that we've had. And I'll compare them to these things, explain how they're alike, and I'm kind of going to ask the question, will you ride the AI boom? I would say probably 90% of you will. There's no reason why 95 to 98% of you can't. And we'll go into that in great detail. First off, I wanted to touch on a story. And those of you who listen to my podcast on a regular basis know that I love to read. I read maybe too much. I read a lot. And when I see something, I read an article, then I read another, then I read another, then I read another. And then until I finally figure out in my own puny mind what's going on. And if you read enough articles and talk to enough people and hear enough commentary, quite often, in fact, almost always, you can come to the conclusion of a story. Now, unfortunately, quite often, if you just listen to the little snippets in the news at the top of the hour, or read a Facebook post or an X post, you're not going to hear the story. But if you read into the rest of the story and read the who, what, where, why, and how from a real journalist, you find out what's going on. And that's what changed my mind on what was going on with these two missionaries who were killed in Haiti earlier this week, Davy and Natalie Lloyd. When I first heard about this, two missionaries killed in Haiti, I thought to myself, well, and that's really all I said, yeah, there were two American missionaries in Haiti, they were killed. And I thought to myself, why are you there? Why did you stay in Haiti? Don't you know that there's civil unrest going on down there? Why would you have gone down there? Why wouldn't you have just canceled your trip and come home? And the reason I thought that way, and by the way, I was 100% wrong because I didn't get the full story. Now, to be fair, I'm not accusing the news media of misrepresenting anything. When you have 5 hours at the top of the hour during a radio program, which is where I get a lot of my news. I still listen to a lot of radio. You get 5 minutes at the top of the hour for news, okay? And to be fair, of that 5 minutes of news, 2 minutes is commercials. So you got 3 minutes of news and you got about 10 stories. So you've got about 15 to 20 seconds per story. You can't give the details. You get slightly more than a headline. And that's when I was hearing it first. These two young missionaries, Davy and Natalie Lloyd, they were Americans and they were killed in Haiti as missionaries. Now, I made the assumption that these were missionaries like a whole lot of missionaries we have in this country. And please hear me out, because I am not belittling these people at all, because they do a whole lot more than I do. All right. But quite often when you hear about American missionaries going to Haiti, they will go there for a week, maybe two, in a very structured environment where they do help people. Maybe they help build a house in a village, dig a well in a village, teach children, give out shots, that type of thing. But they'll be there for a week or two in a very controlled environment, doing good work. But then at the end, they'll hop an island or two over in the Caribbean and have a nice vacation, then come home, okay? That's what I think when I hear of missionaries in Haiti. Davy and Natalie Lloyd were not those types of missionaries. Yes, they were Americans, but Davy grew up in Haiti. In fact, he spoke Creole before, that was just kind of the language of the Haitian people. He spoke Creole before he spoke English. His parents ran an orphanage in Haiti that they began in the very late 90s, 1999, maybe 2000. His parents had that missionary orphanage down there. Now, Davy was just 22, so his parents had this orphanage all his life. He spent a ton of time. That's where he grew up, okay? He married Natalie Lloyd, and they decided to run the orphanage like his parents did. That's where they wanted to be. That's where they belonged. And this orphanage had some 450 children who are living in Haiti, which is just, to say it's a third world country is that's the understatement of the year. I mean, the Dominican Republic, which shares the island of Hispaniola with Haiti, is a third world country. Okay, yeah, they don't always have electricity. They have cholera outbreaks. The people don't have a ton of money. But you know what? The government is fairly stable. Crime isn't horrible in many areas. They have a functioning government. They have a functioning economy, and people live their life. Not in Haiti. Haiti is just, it's backward. It's corrupt. It's, to say it's dangerous is being kind. It's like Mad Max, and they always have been in some parts. But the Lloyds saw a need to help children, and they had this orphanage that helped 450 children who, in this little island just north of Port-au-Prince, the capital, had these children dressed in uniforms. They were clean. They had a bakery there on site. They went to church. They learned school. They were kept clean. They had enough to eat. And they were actually being raised to be responsible human beings. And that's the only way you're going to turn a country like that, is if you introduce the populace to some form of some semblance of, I don't know, what's the word you want to use? Normalcy. If the people don't do it themselves, it's not going to happen. And the Lloyds attempted to do this. Now, Davy's parents had left for the United States. And they said, look, we'll run the show. You guys go ahead and take some time off, go back to the States, take some time off for a few weeks, then come back. And then my wife and I will take a few weeks off, come to the United States, and you can run the show. Well, that didn't happen. I mean, the parents left, but Dave and Natalie stayed there with the director. His name was Jude Montes. And the gangs came in, because the whole country is, I don't even want to say it's ran by gangs, because no gang runs the show, okay? Some guy named Barbecue is the biggest gang member or gang leader. Yeah, the guy's name is Barbecue, and he's the biggest guy in charge, even though he's not really in charge either. Anyway, this gang came into the orphanage, beat these people, stole the money. They had like 3 weeks worth of wages stashed up, stole the money, stole 3 vehicles, and then tied up Davy, and they left. Well, Davy untied himself and called his parents, said, look, this is what happened. This was terrible, but I think it's okay. We're going to be good. And the gangs came back, and they killed Davy and his wife and director Jude Montes. After they killed them, they set them on fire. Think about that. These people were dedicating their lives to helping children. These Americans were dedicating their lives to help these children. The people of the country weren't. The government wasn't. It was Americans who did this. They risked their lives to do this. This was their entire life, to help these children. That's all they wanted to do. And even after they were robbed and beaten, they still stayed. And these animals came back and killed them and caught them on fire. They had already taken all their money. There was nothing else to take except for their lives and their dignity by burning them. And so they did. So, dear listeners, the reason I'm telling you this story is to not just to introduce the ugliness of the world, because you know there's tons of ugliness in the world. But when you read a story like this, it's best not to jump to assumptions, which is what I did. Read into the story. Look at other sources. I know it's difficult sometimes because the number of reliable news sources that are out there continue to dwindle, okay? But they're still out there. The Wall Street Journal is one. CNN actually is one too, if you look deep enough. Don't look at the headlines, just look at the backstories. There's still a lot of good journalism that goes on at CNN. Same with the New York Times, same with the New York Post, same with the Washington Times, same with the Washington Post. Even our local St. Louis Post-Dispatch quite often has good stories. There's still good journalism going on, okay? Read into it. Find out what's going on. And when you see what's going on, when you think to yourself, this country's gone to hell in a handbasket, the United States, I mean. No, we haven't. It's not even close. Every child in this country has plenty to eat. Okay? And there aren't gang members going to orphanages and stealing their money and then setting the people who run the orphanage on fire. That doesn't happen in this country. We have problems in this country, but it's nothing like a place, not like the place Haiti or any of those other places, third world countries, fourth world countries, even though there are no such things, but I just kind of made that up. We've got it so much better than anywhere else in the world, especially Haiti, which is not too far from our country. Okay, I wanted to set the tone of the podcast with that story, mainly because people make assumptions. I made an assumption. I don't think I'm a dummy. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm not stupid. But I was kind of lulled into the story until I investigated it. The biggest story you hear out there right now when it comes to the economy is AI, artificial intelligence. It's going to take our job. It's going to steal our identity. Nobody's going to have a job because AI will take over everything. Always be careful when people use terms like all, everybody, always, because that means there's no exceptions to rules, and there are. And I'm going to look at three trends, three stories here that talk about the way things are going and just the way our country is, the way we're set up. Not like Haiti, where some guy named Barbecue comes in and rules the world. We're set up with rules, laws, checks, and measures and balances, okay? And the first two had to do with just the legal system and how things are adapting, how they are evolving, so to speak. And the last little story has to do with AI, okay? And what AI is and why it's not the boogeyman that you may think it is. First off, have you bought a ticket to any event, a rock concert or anything like that recently? If you have, you've probably heard of Live Nation. If you haven't heard of Live Nation, you've definitely heard of Ticketmaster, okay? If you want to buy a ticket to an event, you got to go through Live Nation or Ticketmaster. There is no more box office. There is no more buy direct. You got to go through these people, okay? That's kind of the way it is. And there's tons of consumer demand for concerts, from Taylor Swift to the Rolling Stones to Pink, you name it. People want to see the top acts, okay? And how do you buy a ticket? Through Ticketmaster, Live Nation. It's the only way you can do it. Well, guess what? You can't, that's called antitrust in this country. In fact, the Justice Department's antitrust suit against Live Nation Entertainment landed in the middle of a live events boom. In fact, the company uses its flywheel of business across concerts, sponsorship, promotion, and ticketing to control the activities of live events and hinder competition. That's what the Department of Justice has alleged. Now, the DOJ lawsuit won't solve the issues fans care about relating to ticket prices, service fees, and access to in-demand shows, Live Nation said in a statement Thursday. The company argued that its ticketing service, Ticketmaster, doesn't set prices, artists and their teams do. It said most of the fees go to the venues, which is true. No, most of the fees don't go to Ticketmaster, but consider what they do. All they do is sell the stupid ticket, and they get a big hunk. And if you don't like it, it's too bad. You got to go through them. Now, that's a big deal for the Department of Justice to say, you know what, there's antitrust here. So they're either going to change the rules or break up Ticketmaster. Live Nation, same company. Live Nation is the parent company. Ticketmaster is the subsidiary that sells the tickets. And that's the way law is set up in this country. You don't have to like it, but that's the way things are. No, we have free enterprise in this country. And when one company, one group, one guy, one gal controls a disproportionate amount of it, they break them up. It happened with AT&T. It happened with Standard Oil of Ohio. It's going to happen with Ticketmaster. And for Ticketmaster to say, well, the artists make most of the money, but they're doing all the work. Almost all the work, okay? If you're going to see Taylor Swift or the Rolling Stones, or if you're going to see any type of entertainment, whether it be a comedian or a musical artist, nobody is going, you know what? I love it when Live Nation puts on an event, so I'm going to go see this Live Nation event. No, they go to see the artist. And to say that, well, the artist makes more money than we do, well, I guess so. If the artist is the only reason these people are going, okay? Sure, the venue's nice, okay? But, and the ticket seller should get something because there's value there, I guess. But the antitrust suit says, let the artist decide if there's value there. If the artist says, you know what? I don't want to go through Ticketmaster. It's too bad they have to, because the venues have been forced into going through Ticketmaster, and all the big venues are where the artists want to go. I mean, I guess they could, instead of going to Busch Stadium, they could go to the Stiefel, that holds 85 people. I guess they could see that. No. They've got to go through Live Nation. They've got to go through Ticketmaster. And that's where the antitrust law comes in. The reason I'm mentioning this is because nobody likes lawyers, okay? But lawyers do serve a purpose. They uphold the law, okay? That's why they're called lawyers. And when something goes awry in this country, we don't start killing people. We take it to court. And that's a big deal because the bottom line is somebody needs to get paid, and the person that gets paid should be the person that does the work. Does anybody disagree with that? Which leads us into story number 2. I've done features on this before. I've talked about this before, but the NCAA, okay, college athletes, they don't get paid. Well, yes, they do. Strong. They get a scholarship. Okay. Yeah. A guy who probably can't read above a third grade level to play football or basketball or some other sport, gets paid to go to school. They will never use that education because best case scenario is they can be a gym teacher. And by the way, when their 4 years of eligibility is done, they don't have a degree most of the time. So to say that they get paid with a college education is ridiculous. When it comes to a Division I basketball player or Division I baseball player, that scholarship I think is good when it comes to, say, a Division III golfer or a Division III swimmer or a Division II wrestler, even a Division I golfer, okay, or baseball player. The schools don't make a ton of money on those sports. They do make a ton of money on basketball and football. In fact, sometimes the other sports, they don't make any money on at all, okay? But they give scholarships to players. Okay, look, you wrestle on our wrestling team and we'll let you go here for 4 years, tuition free. That's fair. Tell a basketball player, we'll let you play basketball here and we'll give you 4 years of education. Well, first of all, you're not going to go to 4 years at that college if you're a great player. You're going to go 1 year and then go to the NBA. And the only reason you go the 1 year is because the NBA has said, yeah, we're going to make you go 1 year. And that's to keep the NCAA pacified. So that way the NBA or the NFL don't have to have minor leagues. The colleges are their free minor leagues. The coaches get paid. The schools get paid. The only people who don't get paid, like in the Ticketmaster deal, are the people that you go to see, and that's the players. Well, that has changed. In fact, breaking with more than a century of policy, the NCAA will pay billions in damage to former athletes and allow schools to pay athletes up to $20 million a year. Yeah, $20 million a year. Now, the NCAA and the 5 most prominent athletic conferences agreed to a $2.77 billion settlement in a class action lawsuit Thursday of last week, ushering in a new era of college sports in which schools can pay athletes directly. Now, the move marks a dramatic shift for the NCAA, breaking with its century-old stance that college athletes are amateurs and therefore cannot share in any of the money they generate for the universities. Now, the settlement will resolve a case that began in 2020 and was seeking to pay back athletes who were barred from earning compensation from endorsements, as well as a cut of the future broadcast revenues. It also marks the latest rule the NCAA has been forced to change amid an onslaught of legal challenges in recent years. Now, first of all, the NCAA allowed athletes to receive academic bonuses and profit from their name, image, and likeness. That's been for a couple of years now. Now that biggest domino has fallen, for the first time ever, some players are going to be paid directly by their schools for playing their sport. Now that's a huge shift that will completely reshape the business model for the top end of this billion-dollar industry. Again, primarily basketball and football players, because those are the ones that the schools make the most money off of. Now, the result is the creation of a system that will give Division I schools the ability to distribute roughly $20 million a year to their athletes. Okay? Now, in theory, they could give that all to one person. It's probably not going to happen, but $20 million per school, that's a lot. Now, although a final agreement is likely to be months away, the NCAA's willingness to modify its stance on athlete compensation it's altered it so dramatically that after a century of treating the notion that players are just a threat, now they're not a threat anymore because this is a landmark and they got to pay them. In fact, all of Division I made today's progress, and that's according to NCAA President Charlie Baker. He said that with a joint statement in the commissioners of 5 conferences named as co-defendants in the lawsuit. And he says, we look forward to working with various student-athlete leadership groups to write the next chapter in college sports. Now, former Arizona State swimmer Grant House and others have challenged the NCAA restrictions on players earning money for their use of their likeness, including through a share of television revenue. For instance, this guy, Grant House, I mean, NCAA swimming is broadcast on television. And Grant House was a good swimmer, but he couldn't get paid. But the school made money, the network made money, everybody made money than him, except for him. He said, look, I want to get paid for this. Okay? I mean, everybody else gets paid for it. Why shouldn't I? And the 5 richest athletic conferences, that's the ACC, the Big 12, the Big 10, the Pac-12, and the SEC. They're all co-defendants. And the boards of those 6 entities voted this week in favor of proceeding with a settlement that will likely end his case, along with 2 other antitrust suits brought by the same legal team, same group of lawyers. And one of them takes aims at the association's limits on education-based benefits, the other at its ability to restrict compensation at all. In fact, lawyers for the plaintiffs have been publicly goading the NCAA to settle because they want to get this thing over with. It's long overdue and a long time coming, says Jeffrey Kessler. He's one of the lawyers representing these plaintiffs, including Grant House. Okay. It's finally getting really close to a system that for the first time will treat the athletes the way they should be treated. Now, some university leaders were less pleased with the outcome. The settlement, though, undesirable in many respects and promising only temporary stability, I should say, is necessary to avoid what would have been the bankruptcy of college athletics. Who says this? Notre Dame president, Father John Jenkins. Okay. Now, that statement comes with a major financial ramification for all the NCAA members, both the richest conferences that were named as co-defendants in the class action lawsuit and the smallest leagues that rely on disbursements from the NCAA to help their athletic programs. So if you've got a tiny school who doesn't make any money, they get a piece of that pie too. The billion-dollar contract that CBS pays the NCAA to broadcast basketball games. Even teams who never have, or even schools who never have a team on that television, get some money. Okay. Now, this is a big deal because the NCAA is funding the damages through 2 mechanisms. The association will fund approximately $1.2 billion of the damages from new revenue sources and savings accrued across the length of the settlement. That's according to a person familiar with the matter. They don't name them. Now, to cover the balance, roughly $160 million per year, the NCAA will reduce its member disbursements on a proportional basis. In other words, the little schools aren't going to get their money anymore. So the big boys win, the little boys don't. Secondly, the NCAA will allow schools to pay athletes a portion of the revenue they generate. Among the schools that compete for the most deep-pocketed conferences, there exist large variances in the total athletic revenue. At the top end, like let's consider Ohio State and Texas. They pull in about $250 million per year in revenue. Now, Washington State, which is a Pac-10 school, they generate maybe $80 million. Now, if they can spend, the figure's 22%. In other words, the settlement agrees for schools to pay athletes 22% of the average annual athletic department revenue to schools, okay? That's roughly $20 million per school. Now, Ohio State can pay a whole lot more than Washington State because they bring in more. 22% of $250 million is a whole lot more than 22% of $80 million. So the argument is this still doesn't make things fair. But really, it wasn't about making things fair for the schools. It was about making things fair for the athletes. Now, that along with another rule where the Supreme Court said, was it the Supreme Court? I think it was the Supreme Court said, yep, you got to start paying people 40 hours, who work more than 40 hours a week, you got to pay them overtime. And this was primarily pointed at low-level managers, say a manager in a restaurant, an assistant manager in a restaurant who gets paid $38,000 a year, and they make them work 80 hours a week, okay? And they don't pay them overtime. Now the figure has been, in fact, President Trump was the one who signed into law the bill that said, look, you can't be paying these people $22,000 a year and making them work 80 hours a week on the promise that one day they'll be a manager. Trump signed into law the bill that said it's $38,000. Well, Biden just signed into law a bill that said it's $54,000, which is a good thing. It all has to do with paying people for what they do, paying them for the work. If you're a great basketball player and you play basketball for your school and it's on television and the school gets a whole bunch of money for watching you play basketball, why should everybody get paid but you? Doesn't make any sense. But now they're getting paid. And finally, okay, we're almost 30 minutes in this podcast and you're saying, Strong, you said this was going to be about AI. You've not even mentioned AI. Okay, I'm leading up to this. And herein lies the whole AI thing. You're familiar with the actress Scarlett Johansson? She's got an agent, a powerful agent. His name is Brian Lord. And he wanted answers when he made an urgent call to a guy named Sam Altman and said, "What are you doing?" Now, who is Altman? Well, he owns a artificial intelligence powerhouse called OpenAI. And for months, he's been trying to get Scarlett Johansson to voice a movie of his, or do a voiceover work for him, because back in 2013, she was the voice of a film called Her, starring Joaquin Phoenix. And in this movie, Johansson was the AI voice that the Joaquin Phoenix character fell in love with. Her name was Sky, okay? And so they had success with her. They wanted to do it again, and she didn't want a voiceover. "I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this." Altman didn't give up. Middle of this month, he texted Lord, who's the agent for Scarlett Johansson, and asked if Johansson might reconsider, because he really wants her to do this thing. And she didn't want to. Now, some people say she didn't want to because they didn't pay her enough, but for whatever reason, she just didn't want to. So on May 13th, OpenAI showcased an updated AI system equipped with new voice assistants for its chat tool called GPT, and it included a female named Sky. And guess who Sky sounded exactly like? That's right, Scarlett Johansson. So Johansson was surprised and angry. She and Lord thought, and others agreed, that Sky's voice sounded seriously eerily similar to Johansson herself. Now, Johansson's lawyer, Lord, said the actress spent the morning fielding calls and emails from friends and associates who had heard the voice and said, "Hey, why did you decide to do this? Why did they steal your voice?" Now, when Lord confronted Altman, the OpenAI chief Altman said, "It's not what happened. Does it sound like Scarlett Johansson? Maybe a little bit. Is she mad about this? Of course she's mad about this." Now, so began the most dramatic episode yet to be between Hollywood and AI. And the emergence of AI as a rapidly advancing and perhaps unstoppable force has sparked deep anxiety in creative industries that have for decades been governed by the strict rules on how creators are compensated for their work. The reason is the language models that power generative AI chat tools are typically made using text, images, music, and videos hoovered up from across the internet. And it just might be yours. Now, that can include material that's copyrighted, valuable, paywalled, and yours. Okay, like Scarlett Johansson's voice. Now, Johansson, who just 3 years ago waged a blistering and public legal campaign against Disney, she hired a legal team to demand answers from Altman and OpenAI and issued a statement. In fact, OpenAI said the Sky was never intended to resemble Johansson, and the company had hired a voice actor who recorded the part before any outreach to Johansson had been made. So they said, "Fine, what's her name?" And they're not telling. In other words, they're lying. This is going to be a big deal, okay? Because you cannot use somebody's voice as their intellectual property, okay? I mean, not that anybody would want to, but in theory, what the AI people could do is go ahead and record some of this podcast. They get a good idea of what my voice sounds like, and then just make a voice that sounds just about like me and do a James Strong Show podcast without me knowing and make millions and billions of dollars, okay? In theory, they could do that, except for the millions and billions of dollars part. But my voice is my intellectual property. It's mine. You can't copy it, okay? Now, Hollywood has tiptoed around the generative AI tools because they kind of like them because they save money. They can write scripts, do production schedules, do visual effects, all that kind of stuff. Anybody who's seen CGI, I mean, they don't wreck cars in movies anymore. They just do CGI, okay? It's all fake. Now, AI is a tool, okay? I use AI. What do I use AI on? If you go to in my day job, I've got a LinkedIn account. And I went to write the account. They said, hey, do you want to use AI to write your biography? I said, sure. One click of a button. There's a couple, 3 paragraphs that I read, and I thought, wow, that's fantastic. You just saved me 45 minutes having to write my own biography. Bang, done. That's how AI can help. Okay. Now, you can't steal your name, image, and likeness. That's intellectual property. But you can use it to do things that are mundane tasks that used to take more time. Now, why do I say this is a big deal? Why do I say this is a huge deal? Why do I say this is a game changer that you need to get involved in? Because remember about 6 months ago, I talked about how the stock market was not going to go crazy. The economy was not going to bump up. The U.S. would not have another big resurgence in the economy until productivity increased, because that's what drives numbers, increased productivities. And go back as far as you want in history. Let's go back really far. We got to get a bunch of work done. So we got these rocks we have to haul. So we take these rocks, we put them on a board, we drag them across the field, and it takes 3 hours to get them across the field. Now the rocks have been transported. Well, guess what? Somebody invented something called a wheel. Instead of 3 hours across the field, it takes 15 minutes. Bang. It's called productivity. Now, I wasn't there, but I'll bet you a nickel that somebody said, well, this wheel, I mean, my job is to drag this board across the field. And I get 60 hours a week to drag this board across the field. Now, it's just going to take a fraction of that time, so I'm going to lose money. In fact, I'm going to get fired because they don't need 6 of people hauling this board across the field. They only need 3 of us, so I'm going to lose my job. This wheel, it sucks. No, it's called progress. It's called productivity. Machinery through the Industrial Revolution. Everybody was going to lose their jobs because these seamstresses, thousands of seamstresses sat in factories and handmade garments. They're all going to lose their jobs, right? No, they ran machines. And instead of a garment costing $10, it cost 50 cents. And everybody could afford garments because they were made by machines. Computers. Computers are terrible. All the secretaries are going to lose their jobs. No, they didn't. They got other jobs. Computers caused us to have so much more productivity. Okay? AI is the next bump in productivity, folks. It's the next way we're going to get from point A to point B quicker, faster, better. Now, what they can't do is say, you know what? I like this James Strong guy. I'm going to pay him $8 million a year to do a podcast. No, I'm not. I'm just going to steal his name, image, and likeness, and using AI, copy his voice and have a podcast and save $8 million. That's not going to happen because it's illegal. The lawyers are showing that it's illegal. We have laws set up in this country, and that's not going to happen. So to say that AI is going to take away all these jobs, no, it's not. What AI is going to do is, if you're the guy or gal who has to sit and write the mundane scripts for trying to sell some type of snake oil, okay, well, AI is going to write that script for you, and you're not going to have a job selling snake oil anymore, okay? But that's okay. You'll get a job doing something else. See what I'm trying to say? One job will go away, but traditionally, if one stupid job goes away, because it just replaces jobs that nobody wants anyway, for the most part. If one stupid job goes away, 8 different jobs that are better will pop up. Movies, for instance. I don't see a lot of movies. I like action films, and I'm not a big fan of CGI. To me, CGI is like something out of a comic book. But you know what? All movies have CGI now. They don't blow up cars anymore. They don't have to have 10,000 extras to do a charge for a Civil War movie anymore. They can just go ahead and CGI it. It's cheaper. It's better. It's they can spend the money on other stuff, like maybe a top actor. See what I'm trying to say? AI, artificial intelligence, is going to basically, it's not going to take over the world. It's not going to put you out of a job. It's going to change the world. It's going to change your job. But if you're smart enough, and I think if you listen to, if you're one of my listeners, yeah, you're smart enough. You're going to figure it out, and you're going to find a way to use AI to your benefit. Okay. One of the things you might want to do, even if you don't know much about AI, maybe put money in the stock market in some of these tech stocks. Okay. And you can make money that way. But that's what I'm trying to say. Will you, or ask, I guess, will you ride the AI boom? Because it's going to happen. And lawyers are going to make sure that the right things don't happen, or the wrong things don't happen, the right things do. In parting, I guess I'll ask the question, so are we dependent on lawyers to make sure that this AI thing goes right? Maybe. But look throughout history. Even though we've had bumps along the road, things still seem to work out for the best in the end, don't they? Unless, of course, you're in Haiti. That's it. I'm done. JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. That's the email address, JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. Send me an email. I appreciate my emails. Thank you. Thank you for sending me your emails. I do respond to all of them eventually. Sometimes it takes me a little bit of time. I appreciate them. I enjoy corresponding with with you, dear listener. And share the podcast with your friends. Tell them to listen. Tell them, what, this knothead's not halfway bad. Well, that's it. I'm done. Until next time, this is James Strong saying adios.